Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a coordinated, scripted, centrally scripted, internationally coordinated propaganda campaign to minimize the effects of third world mass migration into the West and the crime wave that inevitably, that everyone knew in advance, was going to occur. Now, if we look at the sources of mass migration, not all, but there's a very considerable number, certainly more than half, come from some of the most lawless basket case, warlord-ridden places on the planet. So the idea that these people can be converted from casual murderers and brought into the West, that they'll suddenly change their behavior and come all white and Western is beyond absurd. If you look at again, if you add in consider a permanent state of near civil war and tribal conflict, the murder rate is off the charts. And these people who are, we're looking at thousands murdered per 100,000 of population. Whether you want to assign that to civil war, gang warfare, tribal warfare, just rando killings in this. It doesn't really matter. But these people are used to murder and death and having, and even if not death, people having their arm macheted off and this sort of thing is quite. It's how things are at these places. Even in the refugee camps, unless there's a strong military presence from the United Nations, even the refugee camps. These are lawless places where gangs and goons and thugs, run the place, and they kill people or just take them out of the camp and kill them a few miles down the road and this sort of thing. So murders and killings and muggings and beatings and machete cuttings are just how things are, and for a lot of these people that have been in, especially the younger people who say under the age of 40. They've known nothing but that. So when you bring these people to the West, they've never been in a situation or can understand one where the people aren't being murdered, where you're not stepping over murdered bodies in the street. It's just how things are. That's how it is. They don't know a world that's anything other than that. Now, you have to behave and live and be cautious, and you wouldn't call a place where people are getting murdered left, right, and centre. You wouldn't call it a high trust society. So when they come to the West, rather than perceive that, wow, this is a paradise, no one's going to murder me, no one's, this is a paradise here. I can relax. I can, I can be a trusting person. No. They don't see it that way. They see the way they behave. From the murderous environment, they see the way they behave. That is the natural order. That is the natural world. These people in the White West, they're not that way. They're the strange ones. And if you're a high truster, that they don't see a high trust society. They just see a society of naive people who they can turn into victims anytime they want to. And that's their perception of the West. Now, similarly, their authority figures are tribal goons and heavies, and the guy who's murdered the most people is the one who has the most authority. The idea of an independent police force, independent judiciary, and this and that is laughable to them. So they don't accept the authority that comes from an impartial, or what used to be at least, it's not anymore, an impartial police force or judiciary. They don't see it that way. You've got no right. You have no authority. Your authority is not legitimate over me. So they view it as just a case of serious bad luck that they got caught and thrown into prison, and the skill that they need to employ is to just get better at not getting caught. That's all they have to do, and then problem solved as far as they're concerned. But the issue is, with so many people from lawless societies coming into the West, the amount of crimes they commit, and the overall crime attitude of criminality they bring with them is causing crimes of all sorts of sort, whether it's raping schoolgirls or what it is, that they're murdering, machete battles in the street and so on. This is just how it is for them, and they bring this with them, and for some reason they're unable to drop those habits of. Now, some of this is because the the various rival gangs and factions, as far as Western people are concerned, well, they're all from Somalia, or they're all from Mogadishu, or they're all from some basket case place. They're all from there. So that's it, end of. But no, actually, they're all from rival factions and tribes and gangs and this sort of thing. So when they come to the West, they continue their rivalry and gang warfare and tribal warfare and so on. That's something that's really misunderstood or too little understood in the West. So anyway, it's inevitable. Now, any high school kid looking at the situation will say, well, if you're going to bring these people in from all these lawless societies, they're probably going to commit crimes more than the locals do at the very least, if not a shitload more crimes. Do you really want that? And if you know this in advance, what efforts are you making to condition or recondition these people so they're not such eager and motivated criminals as they are? Well, what are you going to do to prevent or limit the problem that you know is going to occur? Well, Western governments did absolutely nothing. They did absolutely fuck all. So they let in these lawless criminals in these desperate basket case societies without anything. The people least likely to be useful, law-abiding citizens are being brought in by the million, and if that's not a self-inflicted wound, I don't know what is. But anyway, now with this big crime wave, which is the knock-on effect of this crime wave is to make mass migration look bad, and the globalists cannot and will not tolerate mass migration being made to look bad. But they do not want bad publicity around mass migration. So their first instinctive reflex action is, well, anyone that says there's a crime wave is a Hitler, swastika waving, fascist Nazi, bigot, racist, white supremacist, Hitler, swastika. So they've tried that. That kind of, the sheen's worn off that one. They're just not getting as much traction as they did once. So they've now reverted to, and this is the internationally part of the ongoing international campaign, is to redefine what a crime is. So, maybe murder is killing somebody, but if you just classify it as something else. So it's not really murder, it's assaulting somebody with a possible terminal effect. There you go. Wow, we've called it something different, so it's no longer murder. But isn't it still murder? Well, it is, but we're just calling it something different. And this is the game that they're doing, whether it's in Washington, D.C., whether it's in the United Kingdom, Australia, or it doesn't matter. It's an internationally coordinated globalist propaganda campaign to obfuscate the issue. So by redefining what a crime is and reclassifying it, you say, well, look, crime's going down. What are you saying? Crime's going up? You're just a racist blaming black and brown people for this, aren't you? You fucking Nazi. You swastika waving fucking fascist. No. They're just redefining and reclassifying crimes, and so they can argue Siddiq Khan in London's doing it, the folks in Washington, D.C., the Democrats all over the world, and the globalists are all doing the same. Canada, it's all the same. No, crime's actually going down. No, it's never been safer. But what about the thing? Oh, yeah, you would mention that, wouldn't you, you damn Nazi? So this is how they're trying to control the narrative and how they're trying to keep their sacred cow of mass migration going and to keep it safe from scrutiny and safe from people putting a stop to it. Now, Donald Trump, of course, has put a stop to it. President Trump's put a stop to it in the United States, which has outraged the globalists like you wouldn't believe. But their immediate reflex response was to then gin up mass migration in Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, Europe. So they're pumping it up as much as they can there to offset the loss of mass migrants going into the United States. And I hope President Trump clamps down with heavy tariffs for any country that has large migrant intake, legal or illegal. But in order to do that, there's been a lot of mass migrant in the UK, for example. Now, some of these people come from Islamic societies where women are covered from the top of their head to the tip of their toes, and then they come to a place in the West where, without any acclimatization or anything at all, supposedly NGOs are supposedly being paid big bucks to help these illiterate peasants from the Islamic republics to acclimatise to the West, but it's not money well spent. Nothing seems to be achieved by this. So these people are these men, youngish men mostly, arrive in a first world country and in summertime and see all this flesh on display, and they just can't cope with it, and so they engage in all sorts of antics that we would consider quite untoward. And given the number of them in the West and the number of crimes they commit and the desperate effort the authorities are making to downplay it, then we can see that it's an unfolding disaster. But will the globalists and their goons and their little flunkies and like the British government, will they stop mass migration? Not a chance. Not a chance. The problem is the people who are noticing these crimes occurring. They're the problem. They're the Nazis, and so we have to have a propaganda campaign to play it all down. So that's what's going on at the moment around the world, and it's absolutely insane. And the mainstream media are parroting a lot of this, of course. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.